Hello, hello, here is Augie again. This time I want to talk to you a little bit about consciousness and the universe. What it is, how it works, and the different universes, what is in it, and within each of one of those universes, the different levels of existence, which we call dimensions. Some of it's going to be based on an incredible experience I had several years ago, where I had a download from the universe into my mind, and the universe was explained in concept and detail. And it's nothing special about this. It's many people have this. Musicians have it, sculptors have it, artists have it, scientists have it. And they don't normally talk about it either because it's so hard to believe. But it is somewhat similar to what Nikola Tesla said one time in an interview. He was doing electrical experiments, and he evidently did something wrong because he got shocked and it knocked him on his back on the floor. And he said, "I saw the past, the present, and the future at the same time." What I had was similar. See, right now, quantum mechanics is becoming more and more understood. And we're finding that quantum mechanics right now on the blackboard can prove that there is a minimum of 11 different levels of existence or dimensional existences. And there's also many bubbles of universes all over. They may phase together or they may stay apart. They think there is nothing in between. This is coming out and becoming more and more understood, and it's going to be more accepted as time goes along. I'm going to talk about the different dimensions and how many there are and so on. And there's only about 3 and 4 of them, actually the third and the fourth dimension, that is physical. The rest of it is made out of, you could say, plasma, light, and consciousness. And for the different dimensions, you could say it starts at 0. Dimension 0. It is only a theoretical dot. It has to be only theoretical. It has no time, no diameter, because if it was a real dot, it has some size to it. So the distance on that dot from the left to the right side would have a distance. Now suddenly it would not be just a dot anymore. It would have length, which is the next dimension, not 0. So the first one is 0. The second one is length. That is the dimensional distance. It's also a theoretical line, because if the line had thickness, then you would have the next dimension, the second dimension. That is length and width. This paper is said to be a 2-dimensional thing, like length and width. It's not quite true, because paper also have a little bit of distance in width to it, or height. So now, actually, theoretically, it is a box. But if you have a theoretical length and width, you have the second dimension. And if we were to live in a 2-dimensional existence, we would be totally flat. I am not so sure that consciousness could actually live there. Then we have the third dimension. That is length, width, and height. Now you have a box. Length, width, and height. You have a box. And anything in that box is stationary. Nothing happens in that box until you add the fourth dimension to it, which is time. And that is, now you can put something in that box in the third dimension. It just sits there, does nothing. If you take a box, put a cat in it, the cat will move around. You know how cats like boxes. Now you have time. It takes a little time for the cat to move around in it. So you have movement inside the third dimension, which makes it fourth dimensional existences where we are. And then we have the fifth dimension. Now we get into the fun part. The fifth dimension we cannot see from the fourth dimension because it exists in the higher vibration of light outside of what our eyes are capable of seeing. And you know, most people think that you see with your eyes. No, you don't. You see with the mind. The sight center in the brain is what sees. The eyes are just the tools, and the eyes create the restriction by its capability of transferring that light back into the sight center. So this is something that it varies a little bit from person to person, and we can access this sight center with our mind in the quantum. This is why you can go to YouTube and punch in the search bar, reading blindfolded, and you can see children, you can see people reading books while they are blindfolded, because they have taught the mind how to absorb the information from the page without using their eyes. This can be done. I've not done it, I've never tried to, but I know it can be done because I've seen it. So now in the fifth dimension, we access this through the quantum, and that is done by thought. What is thought? Let me just dwell on that for just a little bit. Thoughts, there are sine waves to a thought pattern. If you break up the sine wave, magnify and magnify and magnify each sine wave, you break it down into particles, just like light. A light beam is a wave, but it is a particle that is the composition of that wave. A thought wave actually is a longitudinal wave, and it has particles that in an electrical format, they form the wave. If you break up the particle, you will find that they are like mini black holes. In the middle of that particle of thought, there's a black hole. And that is how we access the universe, through those black holes, billions of them in a thought wave. We access the universe in and out through that black hole in the particle of thought. And in the fifth dimension, we can move actually in the higher levels of the fifth dimension, not in the lower ones. That's where ghosts are trapped, and a lot of stuff that you really don't care to observe. But in the higher levels of the fifth dimension, you can actually also slide backwards and forward in time by consciousness. And you can also observe two things or several things at the same time. We kind of do that here in the fourth dimension. It's called multitasking. Some people are really good at it. I can do that. Simple. You can do that. You can work on something on the computer at the same time you're talking to somebody on the phone. That's multitasking. You do two things at the same time. The mind can do that. In the fifth dimension, it becomes easier. You can observe two things at the same time as you interact with both things at the same time. And knowledge comes through those things and is absorbed in the mind from both things or several things at the same time. So this gets a little interesting. Then we have the sixth dimension. This is a world of probabilities. Anything you think of, you can make real and live it, observe it, participate in it by creation of thought. And an example, if you got to be a little careful with this. If you were in the sixth dimension and you thought of something, it could become real if the thought is strong enough. You want to control your thoughts. You wouldn't want to think something like, oh, my brother-in-law is an idiot. You wouldn't be making him any favors by thinking that way. I think you can draw the connection. What you think of strong enough could become reality. So anything is possible, and it is created by mind. And here's another example. On our website, Nori and I have a website that we use for Broadcast Team Alpha. In there, we got 5,000 pictures of unbelievable things that should not exist, but it does. In there, I have a NASA photo of a 3,000-mile long spacecraft that is sitting in the outside ring of Saturn. 3,000-mile long spacecraft. I'll guarantee you that thing was not built by screwing bolts together and with the steel plates. No, it is created by consciousness, thought into existence in a higher vibration, probably up in the 8th, 9th, or the 10th dimensional existence, and then brought down where it can also exist in the 6th dimension. Think on that. And then there are some of these ships, so we call them UFOs, that we see in the sky here. They were not created in the physical either. They were created at a higher level of vibration and brought down here to serve as a transportation mode. So within each dimension, there's many sub-levels or parallel, we call them parallel levels of existence maybe, or sometimes we say parallel universes, but that may not be true because within each universe there is a myriad of levels of existence or dimensions. In another universe, you may have the same thing, or it may be different. But each universe has their own, you could say, laws of physics. So if we are in the 6th dimension and we look at something, we can see things at the same time, participate in things at the same time. And Whatever we see there, we can bring into a lower level of existence, even into the fourth dimension where we are. And then we have the seventh dimension. Here we have infinite number of universes, infinite number of dimensions or levels of existence. And there seem to be life or intelligence or consciousness on every one of them, everywhere and every when. Because time there is relative to what you want it to be. So that is also a place where shape-shifting is very common. You think yourself into an existence and a shape, and that is the shape you will hold. Again, you're able to create the shape there and take the shape with you to a lower existence. We wonder about that sometimes when we see things of prominent figures on TV here where we are, and we can see their eyes, the pupil in their eyes suddenly straighten out to be like cat eyes, and then they go back to a circle again. Maybe somebody have some thoughts on that. That gets a little involved in thinking there. And in the seventh dimension, there is no physicality. A physical body could not exist in the seventh dimension because it cannot handle the higher vibration. It would disintegrate, which means it will revert back to what it was. And also, you can move in all of the universes back and forth. You can think yourself into another universe and another reality or another dimensional existence by thinking on something that you have either placed there, so you have an anchor, or someone else had created something there that you know about. You can think yourself there towards it. It has to have a destination when you think yourself somewhere. And the seventh dimension has always been. It was never any beginning. Anything from the seventh dimension on up never started. It was always there. Now that one is hard to understand. Sixth and below, somewhere, some thought had to enter that vibration and the sixth and below and create something in order for it to exist. So then we have the eighth dimension. There is no physical creation. There, your body would break down if you were there. It contains all possibilities, past, present, and future, in all of the dimensional existences, as well as other universes, are accessible to someone or something or some intelligence living in that eighth dimension. And we could visit, being there, we could visit basically anywhere within that vibration and below, possibly also higher. Because think of it, we kind of do that here too. There are astral travelers, fourth dimensional existences, just as solid as you and I are, but we have another body that is attached to the physical body, and that is the astral vehicle, which leave the physical body and goes out and experience things in the fifth dimension. So from what it appeared is that from the eighth dimension on, you could observe the ninth and maybe above. I don't know how far it would extend. Another thing that you have in the eighth dimension is consciousness sharing. There is a universal mind that you, as an individualized spark of life, or soul, if you want to call it, can enter into that universal mind and join minds with the collective. And it also is very possible that could be accessible at the seventh dimensional existence below it. Now, when you enter that collective, you absorb all knowledge that other minds may have. So technically, you would become all knowing at that level or below. You may not have access to higher vibrational existence and knowledge and wisdom and intelligence. So that consciousness sharing is an exhilarating experience because of all the newness, all the love in it. Throughout the sixth, seventh, and eighth and above dimensional existences, there is phenomenal vibration of love. It is all over. And spiritual light carries the vibration of love. At seventh and eighth and above, everything has life. If there is a tool for something to be used by these intelligences at that level, that tool has life. If you had a rock there, the rock would have life. I'm not so sure you have rocks there, but anything there would have life. And then the ninth dimension. It has infinite possibilities. It is the creation in a snap of a finger, if that is a true term that can be used there. Whatever you think of, it becomes reality. Within that spiritual creative form, which is non-physical, it is created by plasmic intelligence or consciousness. So it's all non-physical. And a lot of the light beings that we talk of, like the one I have talked of meeting one time, that is many of the ninth dimension is many of their homes. That's where they live. And then they travel all the way down and maybe all the way up in other vibrations. And these light beings have work to do. They have purpose. They do things for the good. And there is a possibility of individualization there also. It's very possible. If somebody at that level of existence want to experience something for themselves, they can take on that individualized consciousness, experience it, enjoy it, love it, feel it, do it, and then let go and bring that back to the common mind for others to learn from it also. And also there, of course, we can move into any infinite universe, past, present, and future. And that, of course, also has its own laws of physics. There is a spiritual law of physics and a physical law of physics. It seemed like above 7 or 8 levels of existence, gravity doesn't even exist, because there is only consciousness. Consciousness does not need gravity unless it wants to experience it. And then we have the 10th dimension. It's all built on consciousness technology. At the 10th level of existence, and also at the 9th somewhat, you are the creator of worlds. You control space and time. Whatever you create in that mind becomes reality at any level of vibration and below. So somebody at that level of consciousness could create something, stick it into a physical existence. Here it was. That's what consciousness technology can do. Everything is possible, and is all built by strings holding consciousness together on the basis of particles of consciousness. Now it goes beyond thought. It's consciousness. And then we have the 11th and the 12th dimension, where it's a little fuzzy, where the 12th dimension is basically all there is at all time. Everything is one consciousness. If the 12th dimensional existence wants to experience something, it takes within itself a previously individualized consciousness. It sends it out to experience, so that can gain the experience by it and then come back so it can learn. You could call that 12th experiences, level of existence, the 11th and the 10th. You could call it the home of God if you want. But if God wants to learn, he goes and finds out, and then he learns. I know that's going to upset a few people because we are told that God is all-knowing. What is all? All that refers to everything at this time. But when we move beyond time, then all is everything there ever was. And that is at the 12th. Possibly the 11th, you have much of that. And this is my explanation, what I saw in the download, as well as quantum mechanics will back me up on a lot of this. Because we got to also remember, we are living in a mind-created, holographically generated universe. This universe is self-aware. It has consciousness. It thinks and creates. There is a theoretical physicist named James Gates. He says that if we look deep in the equations of quantum mechanics on the blackboard, the equations that explains the fabric of space, we have computer language in it. Ones and zeros. We didn't put it there. It is too symmetrical and too organized to be done by random, to be there by random. There is put there by an intelligence. So with other words, we are living in a computer program. Don't you wonder who's sitting at the computer? I think I found who's sitting at the computer. No, it's not the big guy. It's you. You create your own reality. in the physical and in the mental, and outside of the mental, in the spiritual world, you create your own reality. So make it a good one. Have good thoughts. Do good deeds. Do the good thing and the right thing when nobody is watching. That's character. Think on that. And thank you for watching. See you in the next video.